Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We will kick things off with a couple of introductions. First of all, my name is Nick Mishko. I'm a senior team lead at Caligo. So I help lead the data analytics practice there, and I also lead a number of engagements, and one of those being with Sunrun and helping them migrate BI platforms and make a shift over to Tableau and Snowflake and DBT. So I've been working closely with Steve over the past 8, 9, 10 months or so. And so that's who I am. Steve, I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Nick. Look forward to chatting today. I'm Steve Maier. I manage data services for Sunrun, which is the nation's largest residential solar provider. We're at 700,000 customers and counting, growing 20 to 30% per year as clean energy really takes off in the US. We're in the United States only, and currently in about 22 states. And in my role, I oversee Sunrun's implementation of BI platforms, currently overseeing Tableau, previously Looker, as well as the company's operational center of excellence and overall analyst enablement strategy.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. So we're going to dive into what it looks like for you as a business to migrate BI platforms. But I just want to start at a high level and ask, how would you describe the role of data and technology in driving solar adoption and ultimately impacting climate change?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a very data-driven company, as most modern enterprises are. And that runs the gamut of a bunch of different applications, ranging from operational use cases that are fairly common in the enterprise world. How do we look at a huge, largely untapped market and target the right customers? How do we figure out whether their home is a good fit for solar, which is a very nuanced data challenge in and of itself, because you need to be able to understand not only a home's characteristics, does it have the right location, the right roof for solar, but also the climate in the area. What's the
Mm.
sunlight look like? How many trees are close to the home? Um, the economics of power in that area. When is power expensive? How expensive is it? What are the economics of producing solar power versus, traditional centralized utility power? Um, and then, we run a multi-thousand person construction business. And so progressing
Mm.
customers through the funnel, having thousands of sales reps and thousands of construction crews aware of what they need to do, aware of where customers are dropping out and why, and from an enterprise perspective, figuring out where efficiencies can be gained. All are very data-driven business needs. And so we have a lot of infrastructure built around kind of the operational side. In addition, we have 700,000 different systems in
Mm.
700,000 different places. And so tracking how well the systems are performing, so that we can make sure that as problems arise, we're addressing them in a timely fashion is a massive data challenge.
Yeah.
Being able to compare what we originally promised versus what we're delivering and communicate that back to customers, being able to gauge how happy customers are with the overall experience, um, and managing the relationship over the course of a 20 plus year uh, agreement also is a truly you know uh, complex and nuanced data use case.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, um, we're entering this really interesting realm where battery storage is really starting to hit a critical mass in the United States.
Mm.
In California, for example, Sunrun has, I believe, along the lines of 18,000 batteries in the field. And when you have that many batteries, when there's a huge surge in demand on the power grid, such as a few weeks ago when California actually had some rolling blackout risk due to a combination of, as I understand it, weather events and kind of the common surge when people get home from work. Um, we have the capacity to actually aggregate power from a bunch of these batteries and then sell it back to the grid at scale, which provides a lot of relief to the grid, has an enormous all around economic value proposition, and is a super, in my opinion, fascinating and hard data challenge because fundamentally you need to understand supply on one side, um, what is going on with demand on the other side,
Yeah.
have the dispatchability, have the ability to communicate when you have supply that can potentially, meet a surge in demand, and then the logic engine to understand when it's economical for everybody involved to do so. And that is a use case that is really in its infancy in the sense that we're only going to see more and more batteries throughout the US and the world. For example, Ford recently partnered with us, and to my knowledge, was the first major US car manufacturer to provide a bidirectional EV charging mechanism so that when folks plug their electric vehicles in at night, that excess power can actually potentially be sold back to the grid. And I think between EVs taking off, between batteries becoming increasingly common with home solar installations, and with the capacity to use data in a IoT world to, potentially, like, say, turn off the dishwasher when there's a sudden surge in demand and power gets expensive, and the ability to potentially have excess power at the household level and sell it back to the grid. We're entering a really fascinating age of data as it relates to solar, with the potential to really make a big difference in terms of climate change. Because actually, the plants, the natural gas peaker plants that are turned on when power suddenly spikes, are hugely polluting from a CO2 perspective, and also hugely expensive, disproportionately to the rest of the electric stack. And so it really is data and decentralization hitting a soft spot in terms of market needs and society's needs, in my opinion.
That's really fascinating, Steve. So it sounds like you're tackling all the traditional business analytics challenges like supply chain optimization, customer journey, customer relationship management. All of that is hugely important for your use of data and technology, but then you're on the cutting edge and the front lines of some pretty interesting things in regards to energy trading and grid relief, and just using solar to alleviate the needs of fossil fuels and things. So that's very cool to hear that you're tackling some of the traditional business analytics challenges, as well as some of the more cutting edge pieces in energy. Okay, let's dive into just the overall shift that your business has made in the past year or two. So I want to set the stage here, and please tell me if I miss anything. But Sunrun has traditionally been a Google shop for a long time, and specifically in the BI realm, Sunrun's been using GBQ and Google BigQuery for their data warehousing, data modeling needs. Been using Looker for data visualization and reporting. And around the start of 2022, Sunrun made a decision to transition to Snowflake and Tableau and dbt And I'm aware that there's also a merger and acquisition with Vivint Solar that went on a couple years ago as well that just compounded the amount of technologies that y'all were using. But is that right? Did I frame it well in terms of the history?
Yeah, you got the right big picture notes. So we the Sunrun Solar and Vivint Solar combined as a company. We merged. I don't know the exact date at this point, but it's probably been 2 to 3 years, 2.5, something
Got
like
it.
that. Um, and basically, um, everything you said is on point in terms of as soon as the merger happened, we had a data community split across two different tech stacks.
Mm,
We had one side of the house that was using Snowflake and MicroStrategy. You had the other side of the house that was using BigQuery and Looker. And all of a sudden, we were this combined team, knowing we needed to collapse around a single infrastructure and start operating as one unit moving forward. But we also knew we would have to redo a good amount of our infrastructure
mm,
because fundamentally there was a lot of combining data, and no matter what, like half the business was going to need to move to a new place. And so that presented a pretty unique opportunity in my career so far, at least, and what I've seen um, around the industry, in that we got the green light to really take a look at our stack end to end, gauge what's working, and then do, if we wanted to hold steady, but if we wanted to swap out platforms, take a greenfield approach and effectively reset, because we were going to have to do so much rework anyway. And
mm.
that's led us down the interesting path towards Snowflake, DBT, and Tableau.
Got it. Got it. So it's so interesting to me because so often we hear from leadership teams and BI teams or centralized IT teams that we have these technologies in place. We've already put the investment forward, make these work and use these technologies moving forward. What was the key driver in actually being able to say, okay, no, as a business, we're going to completely make a shift, invest in new technologies that we see as the premier technologies in the market? What drove that? What was the ultimate reasoning behind making that larger shift?
Yeah, I think there were a few things going on. One, the need for rework anyway
Yeah.
created a window where it was more palatable to invest in swapping out stacks.
Mm,
Two, we knew that we wanted to integrate DBT into the business. We have very strong leadership. My big boss Jed, I think, is really good at helping people to understand the value of good hygiene and good infrastructure in the
mm,
middle of a tech stack. And I think he was able to get uh, the powers to be writing the checks to kind of understand how inserting DBT would really help with our overall hygiene, data accuracy, and change management cycles. And then at a certain juncture, when you're going to be changing a bunch of that stuff anyway, you know, you start asking, well, if we have to redo half of it, like, should we just go full bore? But I think the secondary piece, if I'm being candid, is despite having really smart people um, throughout, you know, the different technology organizations who had built the different stacks and having pieces of our tech stack that were working well, um, people weren't thrilled with um, either. There were
mm,
concerns about the user experience and MicroStrategy and it kind of just feeling old school,
mm.
as well as having some gaps in terms of usability. Fair or not, that definitely was a perception around the business.
So you were
Um,
actually hearing from the analyst community that they were interested in shifting to new tools as well.
We're hearing from a lot of people that they were interested in Tableau, among other things.
Yeah.
Similar story with Looker. Looker, I think it does a number of things well. I think companies can be successful with Looker, but there were a few areas that were not meeting our needs. And we were consistently hearing that people were interested in a market review. And so
Mm.
between our intuition being that there might be, a better fit out there, and that drumbeat among our uh, kind of business analytics leadership, um, things came to a head.
Got it. And Steve, you know that I spend a lot of time on the front end, and that I'm largely a Tableau person. But tell me what specifically about Tableau was so intriguing in terms of presenting a good tool that would communicate that data and democratize that data to the rest of the organization.
Yeah. I won't claim to have seen every BI tool, but in my experience across the tools I named and a handful of others, Tableau is best in class in terms of the ability to tell very clean end user stories, to have really clean filtering, parameterization, and just kind of snappy permutations through a dashboard window pane, or using a dashboard as a window pane, allowing the user to say toggle between different parameters and quickly go from the big picture to the specific insight. The size and reach of the Tableau community was a big draw to us, both in terms of being able to recruit top talent and also draft off of best practices that have been developed along the way. Some specific things that really appealed to the team. Tableau has really robust cross filtering. A lot of thought has been put into just kind of the navigation, the tooltips, having extracts. I mean, plenty of other tools have extracts, but that was a key advantage over Looker in our experience. And then the actual rendering performance, even with live queries for dashboards, was quite snappy.
Yeah.
So those were big pieces from a feature perspective. Last but not least, I mean, we were able to get very good licensing reach. I mean, Tableau worked with us and gave us a lot of seats relative to our spend. And if I'm being real, that was very appealing.
Got it. So usability, performance, and just generally just pricing and fit for the business was key there. So that's awesome. I love to hear that. Steve, tell me a little bit about the scale of this migration, because Sunrun is not a small company. So how many users existed on this platform, this legacy platform, and approximately how many legacy data models and legacy reports were needing to be migrated?
Yeah, so we at its peak, we had about 850 people using Looker, about 150,000 minutes a month.
Wow.
I don't know the exact number of dashboards, but it was in the hundreds easily. We had quite a few in MicroStrategy as well. I don't know the exact numbers off top. I would say we're probably talking about a pool of roughly 1,000 collective people. And at any given point in time, probably 50 to 75 analysts actively building content in the old world. And our target for our new implementation is roughly 50 to 75 people operating in DBT underneath Tableau, because governance and having guardrails around a self-service environment is a key part of our strategy.
Yeah.
Roughly an equivalent number of content creators in Tableau, a few hundred folks who are exploring and, able to kind of take sandboxes and derive their own insights.
Mm.
And then our total seating count is something along the lines of 4,000. And I would expect our company to scale to that.
Wow.
Right now, we're at about 750 active users. I would expect us to scale to that gradually over the next probably 12 to 24 months. But
Wow.
big spike in the next 6.
Yeah, so not a small community at all in terms of the folks that are utilizing data and at the very least consuming data. So how do you ultimately prioritize and plan for this migration to take place, given the large scale of it?
Yeah, well, a couple of years of effort. I mean, it was a long road.
Yeah.
I think we spent at least 2 quarters building a data community. I mean, we
Mm.
had a data community before, but formalizing the data community we had, which was especially important in the wake of a merger when you have a bunch of people who live in different cities and don't know each other. So figuring out who the key influencers are across the company, making sure they were aware that there was going to be an evaluation process around the different tools,
Mm.
getting all of them in the same room together, feeling like one team on a rolling basis. We formed what we call Data Council, which is a group of about 15 of the company's most senior data managers, handful of our most senior analysts, as well as technology leadership. And also kind of starting to have bi-weekly meetings with our larger analyst community. And ultimately, anybody's invited to our bi-weekly data huddles.
Mm.
And so that was the first piece of the puzzle, I think, right? And then when we started to establish rapport and trust across the major functions, then starting to both do a needs analysis, understand how people felt about what had historically been built and what they valued, and setting the stage for an actual tool evaluation. Then probably another quarter, give or take, to actually go through the tool evaluation. All the meanwhile running the business through 2 platforms and having to go to plus Data Studio, I should add, because people kind of resisted the 2 more formal term tools and built their own stuff in Data Studio on the side. So, for the short-term pain was you had to go all over the place to get your data, but I think it led to a medium-term consensus around the tools we were picking, folks feeling like they were acknowledged and heard in terms of what their needs were. And generally, I don't know if every last person at the company agrees with like the specific stack we picked, but I think that for the most part, there has been a critical mass of folks who believe in what we're doing, or at the very least understand why we made the decisions we made. So that all preceded the actual migration work itself, the technical work.
And I'll just say, Steve, too, before you continue on, you mentioned building that community of analysts with the data huddle meetings and a few other things that you do within Sunrun, but that's one of the things that I've seen just lead to at least like success thus far in the migration, because it seems like the analyst community across all the business units is so bought in on the new tech stack and is so excited to learn and to grow together to build an optimized reporting environment that there's no like, or I should say very minimal friction as you start to do this, because people are excited about it. People felt like they were part of the decision. So that's been something that it's just been cool to see that community grow within Sunrun.
Yeah, it's been my favorite part of the job, honestly, because we have a ton of smart people, and a lot of our individual functional analysts sit in silos in different places without necessarily understanding what their peers are doing, because it's very specialized work. As a former analyst myself, I know it can be I mean, I loved that world when I was in it, but it could be a little bit lonely. I'd just be like in the code day in and day out, and getting people space to show off their work, understand what others are doing, and feel the part of something bigger has been really cool. So I agree 100%. And in some ways, it might be the most important part of my job. Yeah. So, I mean, everything I talked about was prior to us actually building the platform itself. And once we got going in terms of, um, resetting the data warehouse, which included a lot of recoding because we were orchestrating all of our transformations through DBT, as well as moving the business's CTE layer, its like kind of transformation table layer, from LookML underneath into DBT. We started to have a good foundation in terms of the data we needed to create visualizations off of. And that process probably took the better part of 3 quarters to kind of lay the foundation for, with us now in the iteration phase. And it also brought us through the start of this year. In 2022 has been all about partnering with you and your team, Nick, to teach people best practices in Tableau, to seed the platform with good products so that people have kind of a playbook and templates to go off of as they're building their products, sitting side by side with them as they go through the journey of developing expertise in the platform, ranging from, giving them the keys to good self-service training to many, many hours of phone calls a week that, primarily you and your team, Nick, have spent helping people understand both how to use Tableau itself to build effective dashboards, but then also how to up-level the dashboard creation process, how to think about MVPs through things like wireframes prior to actually building anything, how to involve the business in the iterative process of going from needs analysis to product. And that's really been our journey the last couple of quarters, bringing down the old platform and scaling up the new one bit by bit as we bring major product lines and functions over.
Nice. That's great, Steve. And you mentioned the partnership with Caligo. From your perspective, what's been kind of the number one thing that Caligo's brought to the table that's sort of helped accelerate or optimize this migration, at least up to this point?
Yeah. Well, hey, look, part of the reason I agreed to do this is y'all have done an awesome job, just to name it for what it is. Very convenient thing for me to say when I'm talking to you, but like, I don't always believe in, going super heavy on consultants. And this has been a case where, like, as we've gotten deeper into our relationship, initially I have wanted to scale this relationship. Initially, my expectations and my hopes for our partnership were fairly limited, in the sense that I knew from the start that we needed someone to come in and really teach us best practices in terms of Tableau governance and what great looks like in terms of Tableau dashboards. In the sense that there were people scattered throughout the company with Tableau experience, but the core team who was running the operational center of excellence was very experienced in terms of BI platforms, but didn't have a whole lot of history in Tableau, myself included. And so you did a really good job of helping us to understand the art of the possible in Tableau. That was one piece of the puzzle. Also, we learned in large part because you were hosting knowledge share sessions with the business. So, bringing the entire company along for the ride as we kind of figured out what what Tableau does well and how to think about product design within the framework. And then as we've gotten deeper into the relationship, I've made the decision to scale up our partnership to now more than 2 FTEs worth of hours per week. Because I saw that y'all were really good teachers. You were really good on the phone in terms of walking people through the day-to-day questions, but also, as I mentioned earlier, you are really skilled at helping people to listen to the business, develop a wireframe, go through the ideation cycle without investing a ton in the technical side itself. Then, once everyone's aligned around a business, building beautiful Tableau dashboards. And, given that the work I've seen from your team has been, like the best in our Tableau instance so far in terms of just user polish and how dynamic it is and stuff, I made the decision that I wanted y'all to really handhold our top analysts through the process, as well as directly staff augmenting us with bringing over some of the content itself.
Yeah, Stephen, you mentioned education and teaching and just like getting on calls with people. I always go back to just the fact that Sunrun has done such a good job of building up the analyst community and aligning everyone and centering everyone around the new tech stack, that everyone just feels bought in and wanting to learn. And so it's been easy from our side. And I know myself and our team has enjoyed it too. So, okay, well, Steve, I know there's still work to be done in terms of this overall migration. So tell me what the experience has been like thus far, and where are you at in the process right now?
Yeah. Well, I think it's been good overall. I do think we have this like good opportunity where people are excited. They want to use the tools. And so I've also had fun with the rollout. And for the most part, we're making good progress in terms of winding down to a single platform. We still have multiple stacks and multiple platforms, and our goal is really to get down to a single stack by the end of this year, with a small handful of exceptions where that's not logistically possible. So, by that point, we will have our 750 users using the platform for all of their day-to-day workflows and, or all of the workflows that were covered by the previous footprint and be at parity. And from there, we'll just continue to scale up. We have the seat count to scale Tableau to sales reps, for example, to start thinking about some of our line level employees. And I definitely think that'll be a place we continue to explore as we kind of turn the corner on having our foundation in place. And in terms of how it's been, I think when people have been engaged, they've been doing good work and we've been making good progress. As a rapidly growing company, with a lot of things in the air, there's been a bit of a balancing act where I like to say that we're rebuilding the airport as the planes are in the air. It feels like that sometimes, in the sense that, like we have to constantly balance the net new stuff coming in versus continuing to chip away at this migration. And that hasn't been a problem necessarily, but it's been maybe a little bit more of a challenge than I expected going in naively. Sure. So that's been one thing that has been notable about the experience.
And you're seeing some pretty significant traction just with the things that you are rolling out. And
we are. Yeah, we're getting good feedback. We're seeing folks sticking. One of my big things with any platform is stickiness when we roll something out. people who start using it continue using it. And qualitatively, we're getting a lot of good feedback on the new data warehouse rebuild being more crisp than before in terms of just organization. People generally like the Snowflake UX in terms of interacting with queries on any given day. DBT has been very well received. It has largely covered the same ground that LookML did, with a bunch of more robust features, such as the ability to create DAGs to have good lineage visibility and to kind of be able to use it as a light data dictionary.
Yeah.
And people like consuming the content in Tableau. Like, they enjoy using the dashboards more, as far as I can tell. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Do people want to use your stuff? So overwhelmingly positive.
Steve, you talked about data consumers just enjoying using the end product a little bit more. Do you have a specific example of how Tableau has up-leveled your ability to use data at the organization?
Yeah, for sure. I think that a good example would be around one of our kind of common operational dashboards. As with any company, we look at our sales funnel, where a customer is dropping out of the funnel, how long does it take for them to progress from stage A to stage B in the funnel, and ultimately, what regions, what products are driving that attrition. Basically, like, where are the pain points, right?
Yeah.
What do we target to get faster and better in terms of taking care of our customers? And we've now had that data across, I can think of 5 different platforms: OBIEE, Data Studio, Looker, MicroStrategy, and now Tableau. There have been different flavors of the same thing, effectively. And I think the version we built in Tableau is our best yet in a couple ways. Number one, it is super snappy. Like, we are able to start with a high-level summary of the funnel. And then if you want to double-click onto a specific portion of the funnel using cross-filtering, double-click and you're down to a subset. If you want to then go from a big picture view of the funnel to a more granular view of the same section of the funnel, right? Because maybe like middle to bottom is one section at the highest grain, but really there are 5 steps in between. You can just toggle and it happens. If you want to look at that data matrixed by geography, by product line, by sales channel, again, with parameters and with extracts and the overall just kind of design decisions made with Tableau, you can fly through those permutations really quickly. None of these features is revolutionary in and of itself, but I think that between the polish of the interface and the fact that when you stack all of those features together, in terms of parameters, cross filters, extracts, etc., it creates an environment where you can go from the big picture to a targeted portion of the big picture to a specific low-level insight in a much more rapid window than we've had in other tools historically.
That's awesome, and I love to hear that. That tool has existed on some level throughout the years in various tools, and to hear that the Tableau has been able to surface that information up in the most intuitive, the fastest, most performant way. That's what you're generally after, and so that's great to hear that. And it's great that you're getting positive feedback from end users that are saying, hey, this is the best version yet. This is what we've been asking for and what we've wanted. So that's great. Steve, I want to be mindful of your time. I really appreciate you doing this. So we'll end with one last question, but I just want to ask you, what advice would you give to someone who is planning a larger scale BI migration such as this?
Yeah. negotiate. So first of all, if you're going to do it, don't cut corners. Do a full stack analysis. Make sure you have leadership that's bought in to a slower pace of net new progress over the course of quarters, probably, if you're a big company, to relay the foundation. They're very clear on the value proposition of why this will be worth it, and that you set realistic expectations, because ultimately, these things can scope creep really fast, and it is a big sacrifice for a business to make, in terms of moving slower on net new technology, net new dashboards, whatever, to reinforce the foundation.
Yeah.
Number two, make sure that your approach is happening because of your end users, not because of internal technology needs. I think it's easy to lose sight of, the fact that other tools probably have better governance controls, more sophisticated admin controls than Tableau in some respects. There are other tools that, have, in my opinion, more sophisticated, like Git versioning for the semantic layer, for example. But all of that, in my opinion, although hugely desirable, is secondary to building things that people want to use. And ultimately, I think when you're in the world of managing content bloat, when you're in the world of trying to keep the source clean, it can be a little bit easy to take your eye off the ball in that regard as you think about what really matters. And then I think the third one is try to push as much of your transformation underneath the BI tool as possible. Get your data warehouse really clean. Get your reporting layer really built out in the data warehouse so that it's tool agnostic.
Yeah.
Make sure it's flowing through a governance framework, version control, unit testing, all that kind of stuff. And then make the BI tool the window pane on top, because that's most likely to lead to good performance. It's vendor agnostic, so that as the industry evolves, you can always be on your toes looking for the best thing down the road. And it's likely to result in all applications kind of sourcing from the same source of truth. And I think that having a single source of truth is probably more important than anything else.
Absolutely. Steve, one last thing I want to cover. I know you've got a couple of openings on your team, so I'll let you talk about those. But if you want to be a part of a team that's working through some really cool, complex problems and is on the cutting edge of renewable energies, Sunrun has a couple openings. So Steve, I'll let you just end here by chatting about that a little bit as well.
It's funny. I feel like a YouTube streamer or something. I guess this is probably ending up on YouTube, but this is like the spam the like button moment. But yeah, hit up the link. I am hiring. I'm looking for a Tableau all-star to really carry the torch that Nick and his team have done such a good job of starting, in the sense of making sure that our business over the course of the coming years here is using Tableau the right way, is building dashboards in a logical way, is thinking about the features in the right way, is customer obsessed in terms of product design. I've got a really talented team, and we've got the wonderful problem of people wanting more and more of our time. So always down to talk with top talent about what that means in an area that I feel really good about getting up in the morning knowing that I'm spending my time fighting climate change, and I think there's a lot to be said for jumping into a space with such a critical mission.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, Steve, want to be mindful of your time, but I really appreciate you joining us today. It was a great conversation. So thank you for your time. And we'll end here.
Awesome. Thanks so much.